Hey there, I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Got a couple things we'll be hitting on today. Today's probably going to be a shorter stream than a lot of them, but got a couple of things that we wanted to go over, a couple of incidents recently that I saw come across the news and thought it made good content, good viewing, and a little bit of, you know, interesting content for us, especially in light of what we covered last week with the Girls and Guns review. This stuff, well, it happens, and we're going to go over some of it today. The first thing, I've got an incident report out of Orange County, California. Now, this one didn't make a lot of news. I caught it sort of on the slide and had to dig in a little bit more to get all the details of it. But it was a shooting at a neighborhood bar. It was an active shooter, what was described as originally. Suspect goes into a local neighborhood bar, and it was interesting. It was on Wednesday night, and Wednesday night, to give you an idea of the kind of place it was, they said it was kind of Wednesday, the spaghetti dinner night at the bar. So, kind of laid back place. All the locals get together, and apparently they cook a big spaghetti dinner night on Wednesday. So, not really a bad place. You figure the kind of place you might bring, the family to, might, you know, sort of hang out at. The interesting thing was, although it was a bar, kids were allowed in there, especially for dinners and things like that. So, kind of a family place. And suspect enters the bar, and he has two handguns and proceeds to open fire on a couple of bar patrons, bar staff, um, band, things like that. Ends up shooting one woman in the face, another woman in the chest. He then exits the bar and tries to retrieve another handgun as well as a 12 gauge shotgun from his truck and begins firing on more patrons who had come out and were trying to stop this from going on. The suspect was eventually shot and killed by responding deputies from Orange County Sheriff's Department when he engaged with them. Typically, that's one of those things of, had he jumped in his truck, driven away, we would have gotten the APB about what he was driving, and everything else. But, when you stay there and decide you're going to get into a gunfight with deputies, I think this probably bordered more on a police assisted suicide. Just my hunch. Don't know, didn't leave a note or anything, but kind of, my feelings. Now, unfortunately, the suspect did manage to kill three individuals and left six wounded, including one individual, woman who was shot in the jaw. Probably going to need some serious facial reconstruction surgery. Now, to go a little bit further, here's the weapons involved. He had a 380 pistol. He had a 25 pistol. He had a 38 caliber revolver. He went out. One of the handguns and the 12 gauge shotgun were what he was trying to retrieve from the truck. He had two of the handguns originally. Don't know which ones were which in the beginning, but the shotgun and one of the pistols and one of the handguns he tried to get from the truck. Now, these were all legally purchased weapons, legal in the great state of California. Part of the reason they were so legal is that this gentleman was actually a retired deputy. He had retired from a retired police officer, excuse me. He is 59 years old, and he retired in 2014 from the Ventura Police Department after 27 years of service. He had been a patrolman. He had been a motorcycle officer. He had been very active in their local union. He had at one point been possibly president of the union, depending on the accounts you read. Um, Several of the people who were interviewed from the law enforcement agency said they either didn't know him, he had served before them, or he was on different shifts, that they knew of him, but their paths never crossed. And again, that's typical in a large size agency. You know of people, you may know of someone in the union, and no real buddies of his have come out and said, "Oh yeah, I knew him great, and we worked together." But it's kind of sick to say that, here's this guy, served his community 27 years, didn't have any major disciplinary write ups, no major issues, no nothing. But for some reason, this 59-year-old male decided to just go completely off the deep end, so to speak, and start shooting up this little neighborhood bar and restaurant. What would make him do that? Well, a little bit determined later that one of the first people shot in the event was his wife and soon to be ex wife, because divorce papers had been started in December of 2022. So now this comes into, we talk about the active shooter stuff and everything else. Last week, we talked about domestic violence. Now, this guy, again, by all rights, decent human being, normal human being, wonderful human being, had done great for 27 years. And he decided that he wanted to end his life this way. And again, when you stay and you decide you're going to fight it out with the PD, to me, that's a police assisted suicide. It's, he's not going to, if you've got officers responding on this, they're going to be coming in and they're going to be rather aggressive. And if you open fire on them, they're likely going to end that pretty quickly. So, again, this is now, definitely an exacerbation or a domestic situation. Now, interesting to note, there were no references in the divorce paperwork or references to anything else about previous domestic violence. Don't know why the divorce had been filed, don't know the specifics on it, but this wasn't like, oh, it had been domestic violence for 10 years. It may have been, but it's not documented that way. Don't know what prompted this man, but apparently he just couldn't deal with the divorce. And so his wife ended up shot in the face, in the jaw. So you figure she's going to have quite a long road of reconstruction and everything else. And a female who she was having dinner with, who's a friend, she ended up shot in the chest and ended up dying just outside the bar. She was able to get up, stagger a few steps, and collapsed and was pronounced on scene. So again, we'll talk about active shooters, and we can talk about that all day long. We can also get into, what we were talking last weekend about domestic violence. Now, at a bar, typically, the ladies, if they were drinking, wouldn't be carrying. I'm a big believer in I don't drink when I carry, I don't carry when I drink. On the other side of that coin, I've been in more than one restaurant where, whoever's the designated driver for the night who isn't drinking is also the designated carrier, and he or she is carrying their sidearm. Owners of the bar, people at the bar. Again, we've got California involved. California's got some of the strictest, most aggressive gun control in the world, and it didn't really do much to stop this person from killing 3 and wounding 6. Gun control, once again, doesn't work. The governor did come out and said, well, this is why the state needs more red flag laws. If you see something, say something. Maybe someone saw something. There wasn't anything that documented, again, a previous history, domestic, nothing else. There were no great red flags thrown out there. So, again, I don't know. They did interview her parents, and they said that he was having a really hard time with a divorce. Well, yeah, I guess we see how bad that got. Don't know what that means. But, again, there's that. It came out of his Cook's Canyon Biker Bar. And again, local little town place that the locals would go in and have Wednesday spaghetti dinner night. And unfortunately, violence broke out. And again, that's where it can be anywhere. We talked about some of the stuff last week about where violence breaks out and anywhere. And that's why I'm a big believer in, I carry when I go out. Unless I'm drinking, I did go out, friend of mine, saw a friend of mine, she was bartending the other night, hung out there for a while with her. I didn't carry that night, but, honestly, that's about the only time I haven't left the house with something in quite some time. That and jury duty, which, by the way, this week I was on jury duty. Didn't get selected for anything. Gee, imagine that. Don't know how, don't know why, but didn't, wonder why they wouldn't pick me. Who knows? But onwards and upwards as we move. We've got a few stories here about good guys or good girls with a gun. And these are the stories that, got 2 or 3 of them. And, again, it is what it is. You may have seen some of these. I know there's one of them that was incredibly popular as it went through this week. To me, I got a great laugh out of the whole thing just because of the fact that, well, there's one of them that, well, we'll see. The first one, we have a customer intervening in an armed robbery. Now, this happened in Cassiopolis, I believe, Michigan. It happened back in July 27th of 2023, and the videos are just coming out now. A male suspect entered the convenience store, puts on a mask, and then threatens the clerk with a box cutter. Pretty much tells him, you know why I'm here, whatever. Now, there's a customer who had been over at the beer cooler in the store, and he had been walking up to the counter with his 6-pack of beer in his hand. He notices that this guy's got a mask on and waving something around and threatening the clerk. And so the guy sort of steps behind what is considered concealment, not really cover, but concealment. And we know the difference between cover is something that will stop an incoming round, as a concealment basically just prevents someone from seeing you and getting a good shot at you. So he steps behind the concealment, draws his firearm, his little pocket rocket, and proceeds to step up a little bit closer and move behind some displays, and then reaches up and over and opens fire on the robber, wounding him, all while still holding his 6-pack in his hand. The one-handed shots with the beer in your hand. So much for hold my beer and watch this. He didn't even have anyone there to hold his beer, but he was still able to put rounds on target. He manages to wound the individual with his 7 shots. The suspect, a 35-year-old male, did have multiple prior felony charges. Gee, imagine that. Again, can we talk about recidivism? Again, a good guy with a gun intervenes, and the store clerk has come out and credited the customer with, hey, he saved my life. Because, if you don't know, box cutter up close and personal, even if it's not a lethal wound, it'll do some damage. It'll do a lot of damage. It'll do a lot of damage pretty quickly. And if you've got someone up in your face waving one of these around, you've got a problem. And here this customer stepped up, did the right thing. And he ended up wounding the individual. The gentleman did survive the wounds. He went to the hospital, was treated, and subsequently arrested. Armed robbery, 2 or 3 other felony charges. And he's currently probably out on bond already. But he did get arrested, so he did survive. On that one, hey, I don't want to see anyone lose their life. But again, if someone's got to get hurt, someone's got to end up in the hospital, someone's got to end up wounded, let's have the bad guy. I'm good with that. Clerk didn't get wounded at all. The guy didn't even drop his beer. Just for the record, it was Miller Lite. He's obviously not a Bud Light drinker, so, props to him. And, hold my beer and watch this. Well, he held his own beer. Watch that. Now we're going to move to Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, this one is really interesting. This is a road rage incident. Now, I don't know how it started. It had occurred on July 31st of 2023. This lady was driving along. Apparently, something happened between her and another gentleman. For whatever reason, as she pulls into the parking lot at the local Food Lion, this individual, for whatever reason, decides he's going to pull in behind her. And she parks her car. He then parks behind her and proceeds to open the door of her car, pounding on the window, trying to open the door of her car. Well, she used her firearm, fires on him. He ends up being transported to the hospital, and he lost his life at the hospital, succumbed to his injuries. Raleigh PD and the Wake County District Attorney have said no charges will be filed. This was clearly a case of what they call castle doctrine. Now, again, North Carolina law, castle doctrine, it doesn't have to be just in your home. It can also be any place else that is your castle. So when we talk about your castle, in this case, we're going to say that, her car was her castle, and he was attempting to aggressively gain entry, trying to force the door of her car. Now, interesting to note on the legal thing. Had he just been pounding on the hood, had he just been vandalizing, had he grabbed her, radio antenna and tied it in a bow, that isn't really a attack on her person. That would be property crime. But when he's trying to get in that car and he's aggressively trying to get in that car and she's trapped in that car, that was seen as an attack on her. So thus, they're putting it under the Castle Doctrine. Raleigh PD and Wake County DA, no charges filed. What happens to this lady if she does not have a firearm and he either breaks the window or gets in that car? Y'all tell me. I know what I think would happen. I think at the least she'd be assaulted, possibly punched, hit, who knows. This guy had obviously lost it in a road rage incident. You follow someone into a parking lot, okay, whatever. What are we doing? Being stupid. Apparently, 50 Shades of Stupid. Well, didn't work out too well for this gentleman, and we see how that went. So, unfortunately, he lost his life. And, again, I'm glad this lady is alive and kicking and able to go home to her family and her kids, because that's what it is. I don't know if she has kids, but she's able to go home in one piece. Why? She was able to defend herself. Ladies, I say it. Not trying to be misogynistic here. I was joking with someone the other day. At the rate of sounding misogynistic, women need to be more readily available or more readily trained in firearm stuff than us guys do. How come? Well, because they're more likely to have to defend themselves. Had this guy pulled up on that car and let's say the person in it was a 6'3", 6'4", 300-pound bodybuilder, this guy would have been like, maybe not. I don't want to do this. But you know what? I'm willing to bet some part of it was he had this woman where she was, at least in his perception, vulnerable, at a disadvantage. And so he decided he would use that disadvantage and basically terrorize this lady for all intents and purposes. I'll call it what it is. Let's quit bullshitting about it. It is what it is. All righty, onwards and upwards. We've got the next one. Now, this one comes out of Amite, Louisiana. And this is a real interesting one. It's a good one because, no one dies in this one. Homeowner has to fend off 2 burglary suspects. Homeowner in the middle of the night is alerted to a burglary in progress by his surveillance cameras. He calls law enforcement. Now, by the time law enforcement got there, the homeowner had 1 suspect held at gunpoint. The other one took off into the woods and was captured shortly afterwards by law enforcement in a wooded area nearby. Now, this one did not have a shot fired, did not have anyone wounded, no one lost their life, the best possible outcome for everybody, and the 2 bad guys went to the Hooskow. They got to spend some quality time in the Gray Bar Motel. Again, law enforcement, nothing against them. I have all the faith in the world in the boys and girls in blue. The Thin Blue Line, I support them as much as I possibly can, 90% of the time. But, why do you carry? Well, because when seconds count, cops can be minutes away. I don't know how rural this area is. If you're in a rural area, fact of life, it's not that the police don't want to or they don't care or, they don't give a damn. But the bottom line is if you've got, 5 cars on the road and 6 calls coming in, or they've got to, 5 cars on the road and only 2 calls, but they're having to travel a distance to you in a rural area, that door is only going to fend them off for so long until, guess what? You need to defend yourself. You need to take steps on yourself. So from that standpoint, it is what it is, folks. Take it for what it is, and we'll work with it. I don't know what else to tell you as far as that goes, but, I'm glad, again, no one lost their life in this, but it worked out where the bad guy ended up in custody, both of them. And that's pretty much all I've got for today. I see we've got a couple of people watching. Folks, if you got any questions or comments, throw them down here in the chat. If you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up. I try to compile all this news each week, try to find stories that are not only interesting, but intriguing. Sort of show you the gun community, again, the 2A community, the firearms owner, the concealed carrier community. We're not about going out and murdering people or killing people or this, that, and the other. We're just about being able to defend ourselves. This guy being able to defend himself when two people are breaking into his home before the cops could get there. The lady who's going out running errands or doing whatever she's doing, who finds herself confronted by an aggressive man. She's trapped in her car. She's got nowhere to go. You know, and what happens? She was able to defend herself. She prevented from becoming any kind of victim because she could defend herself. It is what it is, folks. You know, we look at the guy, he's out there picking up his six pack, whether it's after work or in the evening. And you know what? Guess what? He walks in on this, or the guy, Robert walked in on him in the store. And he was able to do what? Protect himself, protect the clerk. Clerk says, clearly, this guy saved my life. I don't know what I'd done without him. So it is what it is. I did have somebody ask me at one point if I would do some more information on shotguns. Definitely, I'm in the process of putting some information together on shotguns, and I'm going to be doing a series of videos, probably 2 or 3 in the series on different shotgun stuff. Now, I will tell you, when I do the stuff on shotguns, just because of some platforms not being really gung-ho with me showing and playing or tinkering or displaying pew-pews on the channel, that's fine. I'll probably do most of that on the Rumble channel as Rumble exclusive. I will post it out as when I'm doing it. It may be live. It may be some of it pre-recorded or edited in. We're going to work with that and see what we can do. If you've got any ideas for anything, here's all the ways you can get in contact with us. We do have the X or Twitter page. We have that up there. We post information on there pretty regularly. Beyond that, we also have Facebook. We have our locals channel. We have our Rumble library. And that, again, we have more information on Rumble sometimes than on YouTube. And it's just out of respect to YouTube. Look, they don't want me to put a bunch of stuff on there. I won't do it. I get that. They have what they want to be, their platform. It's their world. They want to be ad friendly. I'm fine with it. As far as emailing me or asking me questions directly, finding out about classes, mike.southeastdefense@gmail.com always works. Folks, if you like what we're doing, please share it out to your friends. Support it. The more we can support this and the more we can get it out there, the more we can do. I'm a big believer in not only the 2A community, but also trying to come up with ways that we can educate and inform ourselves, each other, sharing information. Again, I did not grow up in a great big, very pro-gun environment. I didn't grow up in an environment where this was a big thing that we were, very involved in. As that, for me, it was kind of a different world of sorts, but I can still come in and say, look, I want to do something to help share education, share information, and possibly do something a little bit better to help people out, to help people learn about this stuff, to provide information and education. That's always been my goal. Folks, if you appreciate it, please let us know. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful evening. Be safe, be smart. Bye.